heart of where innovation, money, and power collide in Silicon Valley and beyond. This is Bloomberg Technology with Caroline Hyde and Ed Ludlow.
I'm Caroline Hyde at Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Coming up, we'll bring you the full coverage of Super Bowl 58, from the streaming to the advertising, the actual cellular infrastructure within the stadium. We have got you covered.
Plus, Bitcoin tops $49,000 for the first time in a month. We'll look at the ups and downs of the crypto industry, as many are still coping with a tumultuous few years.
And President Biden launches a TikTok account to reach young voters amid his re-election campaign. We'll break down the broader media strategy by the White House amid what is a crucial election year. But first, let's get to these crucial markets. And we're just sort of digesting what has been a serious run-up in the equity market, and certainly you see it with that $5,000 level once again being eclipsed by the S&P 500. We're only up about 0.1% after we, of course, pushed through that for the first time on Friday. I'm looking at the Nasdaq up 0.3% at the moment. So we just sort of wait and watch and try and really maneuver ourselves as we anticipate what the Federal Reserve does. CPI print tomorrow, of course, all important retail data. We're looking at the macro to dictate overall where Fed policy goes. Yields currently just up about a basis point or so on the 10-year yield as we anticipate perhaps some cooling in inflationary pressures tomorrow. Move on and have a look at what's happening in the world of crypto, because actually this particular risk asset is on a tear and we're up to almost at the $50,000 handle once again. Ed, we'll dig into the details as to why in a moment. What have you got on the micro?
Look, two analyst calls that are basically driving two names I'm watching. Nvidia is the story right now, up 2.7%. Melius Research boosting their price target on the stock to beyond $900 a share. We're at around $740 right now. But it was also interesting over the weekend, CEO Jensen Huang downplayed that journal report that Sam Altman says we need $7 trillion to achieve this AI chips initiative. But if you're eagle-eyed, you'll see that Jensen Huang slipped in a $2 trillion number, which seems to be more than his previous call on short-term investment needed in infrastructure for AI. Anyway, that stock is the biggest points boost on the Nasdaq 100. Then Barclays cutting to equal weight on Rivian. It is now caught up, according to Barclays, in this whole story about demand not being there for EVs. That's a mover to the downside. Then I give you this, the Super Bowl post-show scores on the doors. Some of these names are benefiting, some are not, but Snap's up 8%. It had its Super Bowl ad making its debut. Uber softer by 0.4%. I'm not saying there's a causal link here. I just had a lot of fun in between plays in the commercial breaks, seeing these ads during the show. We'll dig into it later in the program. But it's always interesting to say, did this actually move the needle for these companies? Yes or no? We'll find out.
PDD, the one to watch. Happy Super Bowl Monday to all who celebrate and are a little tired. And a projected record-breaking one at that it was. We spoke, of course, to the Paramount CEO, Bob Bakish, on Friday before the big game. Here's what he had in anticipation.
It's been an incredible season for the NFL on CBS. We set the high watermark for ratings since the property returned in 1998. We set the high watermark for ad sales for a Super Bowl. And it's looking like on Sunday, we'll set an all-time viewing number with any luck.
Of course, it was a big win for Kansas City Chiefs, defeating, I'm afraid, Ed, San Francisco 49ers, becoming the first back-to-back Super Bowl champs in like 19 years. Now, viewing figures, not out yet, but it is forecast to be the most watched Super Bowl in history. Bloomberg's Felix Gillette joins us for a little bit on what we anticipate in terms of actual eyeballs and the way in which people viewed. But ultimately on Paramount Plus and CBS and even Nickelodeon, what are we anticipating in terms of viewers?
Well, the game couldn't have gone any better for CBS and Paramount. I mean, the fact that it was a close game, went to overtime, there's lots of drama, keeps viewers' attention, is really the perfect script for them. And I think it'll be huge numbers. I'd be surprised if they don't break the all-time number. Yeah, they're going to have to factor in the streaming numbers, what happened on Nickelodeon. There were some, streaming problems at the outset of the game, but I think overall, add in the Taylor Swift, Kelsey drama at the end, the kiss on the field. I mean, it's just really perfect for them.
Bloomberg Technology senior producer Jackie Lopez, our glorious leader, saying that the Nickelodeon production was out of this world. It's an interesting experience, right? I watched through the Paramount Plus streaming app. When we spoke to Bob Bakish, it's kind of like great for the platform, but it's a shop window. You know, they had the Halo Season 2 ads going. Then there are the third-party ads. What did you make of it, Felix, as a technology spectacle for Paramount Global, but also for their business, which is still ad-based?
Yeah, and I think they need, Nickelodeon needs a win. They need some good news. It's been a terrible time for cable networks, and it's fun. It's like a different experience for the kids. I even thought that their ad for Pluto TV was one of the best, and saw a lot of buzz for it. The raising couch potatoes was very
couch
funny.
potato.
Yeah, which was really good. I mean, very good night all across the board for them.
All right, Bloomberg's Felix Gillette, thank you. And Kara, I think you and I, partly because we covered it a lot on the show in recent weeks and months, paid attention to Temu.
Yeah.
Like the regularity of the ads, but also the idea like you can shop like a billionaire on a platform that's like discounting. It was very interesting for me.
And maybe that we've been saying the company wrong all this time, because the way in which the jingle goes and the sound on is Temu, but it really is an interesting habit. The fact that they just kept rolling the same one out again and again, and ultimately everyone's still engaging with it, the phenomenal stats. But for me, what caught the eyes was the fact that it was movies that did well. It was non-US car makers that seemed to be doing well. And ultimately, they were all pretty focused on being emotional in some way. If they weren't being humorous, there was an emotional tap to it all. But I don't know, I was on the edge of my seat. I mean, of course, I was more about Usher on his roller skates. But other than that, this Deadpool one had all my kids talking.
Yes, excited about Deadpool. Wicked is one that was there as well. And I know that Taylor Swift was at the center of this Super Bowl, but in the commercial ad context, Beyonce, which we can talk about later in the program.
Country, though. Maybe country is for the win in terms of music in every single way. Let's get more of a read-through on really the real insights that we can go from just last night's own adverts. We've got Kevin Krim with us, CEO of EDO. Look, it measures the immediate impact of TV advertising across linear, across streaming, and that's where, of course, this game was taking part. Kevin, give us the sense. It felt like you're pointing out, actually, that it was the movies and the auto ads that really stuck out in terms of us all then diving in and wanting to interact with them immediately.
Right. So great game last night, as you said. And what Nielsen measures with its audience numbers is how many people watched. What we're measuring at EDO is what happens next. What are those behaviors that every marketer is trying to drive of engagement with their brands, that deepening of loyalty, of consideration of intent. And what we saw, top two best performing ads were movies, as you mentioned. Number three was Volkswagen. Really interesting to see Volkswagen returning to the game after 10 years of being absent, showing their heritage in the US with the Beetle, and then teasing their all-electric VW bus, the ID Buzz, that's coming later this year.
And boy, has Evie been under some pressure of late. I'm just wanting to know ultimately what you're measuring. When you're coming to us with numbers like 2,243% increase in terms of engagement when it came to Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right.
What are you seeing? Is it searches?
Those are people grabbing their phones, other connected devices, and searching for it, going to YouTube to watch the trailer, the extended trailer, which is often a call to action, going to Wikipedia to learn more about the cast. Those are the kind of behaviors that we pick up in our measurement, and we're looking at lift above a normal baseline set of behaviors. So these new films, new cars, new products like Temu, relatively new still, those are the kind of things we're seeing very large lift above those baseline levels. Something that is more ubiquitous, you're going to see a lower lift, but those still are interesting numbers when you're a marketer trying to drive people into your product.
What you don't expect the morning after a Super Bowl is to wake up and think about probiotic healthy sodas. But, Poppy was so present, right? I want to use them as a case study for the spend because, they rank super high on the list, but that must have been some expensive real estate for them to be so positioned. And the question is, what does the data tell you about what they get out of it? How do we know that people flood to the shops thinking about their gut health and wanting to drink healthy soda?
Right. So we saw Poppy number 4 on our rankings, huge lift above its normal levels of engagement. What their ad did so smartly is talked about the benefits, the differences between their soda and a typical sugary soda, low sugar, probiotics, and it's a high-priced product. I didn't realize until I saw that ad and I looked it up that it's a $2 a can soda if you're buying it, at the typical grocery store. So for an independent soda company based in Austin, Texas, to really break through, you're spending about $7, maybe even a little more, $1 million for that 30-second spot. Your creative costs are on top of that. Now, they intelligently, I think, didn't invest in a celebrity. They didn't need it. They felt, instead, they went with just big, bold claims about how they're different. It was a bright, cheery, and an engaging spot, and it performed.
Something not in your top 10 is Verizon and Beyonce. And your data is on online engagement. So I find that so surprising. You know, when you say online engagement, if somebody watches this video and goes, OK, Beyonce, what are you saying that they're doing? They're just going straight to Google and searching for this, or are they engaging in another way online?
Well, what we're seeing with that kind of ad is, and our methodology separates the engagement with the brand from the engagement with the celebrity. So we'll certainly see that Beyonce is at the top of our celebrity rankings when it comes to that measurement. But for Verizon, and it's a great ad. I think it's the most fun I've seen Beyonce having in a long time. It hits on a bunch of fun themes. The risk with that kind of huge celebrity like Beyonce is that you are siphoning off potentially some of your engagement with your brand to the celebrity. So the challenge is always to work together in an authentic way to get the celebrity to be really tightly aligned with your brand. And again, I think this performed well. It was well above the average for our measurement of all ads on the Super Bowl. But I think comparing it with T-Mobile's ad with the cast of Scrubs and Jason Momoa, that one may have hit their benefits even more squarely, and so they were a little ahead of Verizon according to our measurement.
I mean, I found the Dunkin' one pretty funny, but that doesn't seem to have come up in particularly your numbers as well. I mean, was that again misspent money on the power of celebrity that is J-Lo and actually her husband?
It performed very well. It was in our top 20 or just shy of it. So out of 100+ ads, still a great outcome for Dunkin', which is almost an everyday household name in this country. And it was a great ad, really well executed. That was a very authentic use of celebrity and some nostalgia all wrapped into one. Very fun ad, and it performed. I mean, to get people to even be engaging with Dunkin' at all, whether it's through their app or through web searches, is quite a feat, and they hit it.
I wonder, Ed, how much interaction there was with Satoshi Nakamoto on the back of just a T-shirt or sweatshirt worn by one Jack Dorsey, but there were no crypto
Beyonce,
ads.
Jay-Z, and then just the random guy next to them, which loads of people saw.
And some magnums of red, as you so well pointed out. It's been brilliant to get the inside track with EDO CEO Kevin Krim. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. And all things ads, a little bit more to do with Super Bowl coming up in the show. But coming up, we're going to get serious around, of course, the Ukrainian military forces saying that Russia is using Starlink terminals on the front line. We'll tell you how Starlink is responding to those claims across the social platform X, of course. Ed, what have you got?
Just real quick look at Amazon. Shares down a half percentage point. The news, Jeff Bezos sold 12 million Amazon shares last week, Wednesday, Thursday. Net proceeds around $2 billion. We knew on February 2nd that he has a plan to sell 50 million shares over the course of the next 12 months. But it's the first time he's sold stock since 2021. And if you think back to 2021, he did $20 billion worth over those 2 years. So it's definitely one to watch. This is Bloomberg Technology. It's time for Talking Tech. And first up, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang says advances in computing over the next few years will scale back the high costs of developing artificial intelligence. Still, Huang expects the global cost of data centers powering AI to increase in the next 5 years. This comes in response to a Wall Street Journal report that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is seeking to raise $7 trillion from investors. And in a shift toward the United States and other Western markets, AI firm G42 tells Bloomberg News that it's paring back its presence in China. The Abu Dhabi-based firm has been at the forefront of the United Arab Emirates' push into AI. Its partnerships include one with OpenAI and Cerebras Systems. Plus, Elon Musk is cutting ties with Delaware. The billionaire reincorporated the brain implant company Neuralink to Nevada from the first state. The change was completed Thursday in a notice sent to shareholders. Musk has suffered a number of legal setbacks in Delaware, including one over his pay and another over his acquisition of Twitter. Caroline.
Let's get into some other news relating to Elon Musk, Ed, because Ukraine is accusing Russian military forces of using Starlink terminals on the front line, saying that the use of Starlink's internet service is becoming, what they say, is systemic. This is as the Starlink satellite internet service is also, we understand, being used by Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces amid a nationwide internet blackout that the UN is saying, of course, that blackout is really brutal for the humanitarian crisis that's being injected after a 10-month civil war. All of this ultimately questioning how Starlink is being used and what the company ultimately knows about it. I'm pleased to say Bloomberg's Max Chafkin is with us now. And when we think of Russia and Ukraine in particular, Starlink has come back and said, not to our knowledge is it being used, right?
Well, Starlink denied that its devices were being used in Russia, that its service was being used in Russia, although the claim was not necessarily that the devices were being used in Russia, but in Russian-occupied Ukraine. So in other words, in Ukraine. And this kind of calls back to this earlier incident that happened, which was reported in the Walter Isaacson book, where Musk apparently, according to Isaacson, stopped the service from being turned on in Crimea, which is international law recognizes Ukraine, Russia annexed in 2014. So you have this situation where Starlink, which was developed essentially as a civilian technology, Musk has talked about, this was for Netflix and chill. This is something that was meant to be used for video calls and so on, has been partly because, it's pretty useful and the way it's used has become like a de facto military technology. And SpaceX has been trying to capitalize on that while kind of beating back criticism that it's doing so in an irresponsible way.
Caroline made a good point, which is the wording Musk used was to the best of our knowledge. And one user on X said, what do you mean, the best of your knowledge? And his response was, the link doesn't work. By that, I think he means that the technology doesn't work in the Russian jurisdiction. I guess, what more do we know about SpaceX and Starlink's ability to control things in jurisdictions, right? I know there's that map on the website that shows where the product's operational.
Yeah, I don't think they're able to control the use in a very granular way, and it's possible that these devices, Musk has denied that Russia purchased these devices. It's possible the devices were captured. Of course, it's also possible they were purchased through an intermediary or something like that. And of course, we should look at all these claims as claims, right? This is the Ukrainian military reporting something that they overheard through their intelligence. So again, it's all pretty fuzzy. I'd say what it does show, though, is that, Elon Musk has kind of made a show of weighing in on foreign policy, of expressing sort of not exactly pro-Russia sentiments, but views towards Russia that I'd say are more sympathetic than the one viewed by the United States government. And that creates like an additional layer of complexity when something like this comes up. Because, whatever is going on, you have, this very loud, very, very opinionated CEO weighing in on political issues. And that creates, an additional layer of complication as they're trying to market this potentially to military groups in the U.S. and U.S. allies.
All right, Bloomberg's Max Chafkin over in New York. Thank you very much. Now, coming up here on the program, Bitcoin is topping $49,000 for the first time in a month. Despite the strong start to the year, many are still reeling with what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years. We're going to have those details next. What do you got, Caroline?
An interesting one, particularly for those who know a certain billionaire in the United Kingdom, because Mike Lynch, it looks as though overall Hewlett-Packard Enterprises is seeking as much as $4 billion from Autonomy's former boss, following a London judge's finding that they fraudulently boosted the value of the company before its sale. This really dates back to, of course, a key acquisition made by HP, as it formerly was. Founder Mike Lynch was found to have inflated Autonomy's revenue alongside his CFO, who, of course, has already been focused upon here in the United States. But we understand lawyers for HP calculated the total losses that Lynch and Hussein must pay back over $4 billion. Hewlett-Packard currently up 1.23% on HPE stock. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Bitcoin hitting 49,000 for the first time in a month. For some, Bitcoin and crypto are back, but for others, there's still trauma from years of volatility in a battle between FOMO and selling it again. The total market cap of the biggest digital currencies, Bitcoin and Ether, has been boosted by the SEC's approval of spot ETFs, but it also masks the reality of what the last few years have been like. If you were a crypto investor starting in 2021, you've lived through FTX's collapse and thousands waiting to learn if they can access their funds on the exchange. Even if you had some Bitcoin, 12,000 other smaller altcoins don't exist anymore or are now illiquid. And then there's the ride itself. If you're hodling, crypto lingo for holding onto an investment no matter the cost, you've been through it. Bitcoin jumped from 44,000 to 48,000 per token since February 2022. But in the interim, there's been days where the price has swung thousands of dollars and we hit a low of 15,500. And for all the drama, we still aren't clear on the real world use case of digital assets. The latest bounce hasn't settled the biggest worries about crypto. Let's bring in Bloomberg Sonali Basak. That was a long monologue about where we actually are now with crypto. How do you read it?
What is the use case is an interesting question here because, of course, now you have Bitcoin, which, of course, is the kingmaker of the crypto industry. And you have seen, interestingly enough, Ed, you have seen the price of Bitcoin hop back to levels that we haven't seen since December of 2021. Now, we are well off those highs. As you were saying, we have breached above 60,000 in the peak of what we saw in crypto euphoria when people were buying Bitcoin at home before FTX had collapsed. But we are riding back higher, and you're seeing the launches of these ETFs, particularly for BlackRock and Fidelity in particular, have the greatest number of assets being brought in, according to Bloomberg Intelligence, ever for an ETF launch of any asset class. So you are seeing traditional Wall Street hop in and help give that value proposition to Bitcoin. We are seeing it finally hop back up to levels that we saw when you initially saw the excitement around the ETF. The question is, does it reach new highs once again? You still have the halving coming up in coming weeks. There is an argument to be made that some of that is already priced in. But interestingly, it's not just Bitcoin, actually, that's seeing a lot of love lately. Even some other altcoins or tokens outside of the initial big two, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Take Solana. Solana is up 13% over the last 7 days. And this is a network that had seen an outage just a couple days ago, really. So a lot of love coming back to the crypto markets today.
$3.8 billion taken in by BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust, 3.1 by Fidelity. We thank Sonali Basak for the inside track on all things crypto. Coming up, we take you to the fact that President Joe Biden is joining TikTok for the campaign. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. Ed Ludlow here in San Francisco.
Caroline Hyde in New York. Let's get a check-in on these markets because we're anticipating CPI print tomorrow. We're anticipating retail data, consumer sentiment. There's a lot on the macro that dictates where we go in terms of Fed policy. That's driving overall benchmarks. If we're looking at the macro today, NASDAQ 100, you see, still powering on, up about 0.3%. I'll dig into some of the key leaders in that particular front. And also look at the S&P 500, of course, breaching that technical level, that psychological level of 5,000 on Friday. And we still managed to claw our way higher. We're 42 points above that particular level at the moment, just up about 0.3%. And I'm looking at Bitcoin as well, really on a tear. I mean, we're almost breaching the $50,000 level. So all eyes on some of these risk assets. Go into the individual movers, and I focus in on PDD because, of course, we have some fun around what's happening on the Super Bowl. And Temu really seemed to be a winner in terms of its ad that played and played and played and played. And we're up almost 4% on that particular overall depository receipt that's traded here in the US. But I'm also looking at some record highs that keep on being hit. Look at what ARM is up to. Phenomenal move, 36% higher again. They are $80 billion worth market cap on the higher side just this year alone. The earnings are still feeding this glee around the AI and the way that this company can benefit from it. So phenomenal moves on this stock as it hits yet another record high. Remember, it's not in the NASDAQ 100 though, because there's not that much of it is a free float. I'm looking what's happening also though on Meta, a new record high as well, clawing up more than 2 percentage points. So overall, there feels as though there's desire to get into some of these big tech names. But you've got more on the social media angle now, Ed.
Yeah, let's get back to the digital campaign trail with President Joe Biden's re-election campaign launching a TikTok account in a bid to reach younger voters, a move that comes as the popular short-form video platform confronts concerns over its ties to China. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Katie Lyons out in D.C. Showing the video, it's one way to engage with the younger voter.
Yeah, absolutely. And the White House already has been engaged in trying to use TikTok, not outright via its own actual account, but of course they've engaged with content creators on the platform before in order to push their messages and reach these younger individuals. And that's exactly what the campaign is trying to do here now. Engage with younger voters who the president is going to rely on to show up for him in November if he wants to win a second term. Now, this account does belong to the Biden campaign, not to the president himself, but essentially what they're trying to reach is that key demographic. A Pew Research survey from just 2 weeks ago found 62% of U.S. adults between 18 and 29 use TikTok. 33% of adults overall do. So that's who they're trying to reach. But you can understand how this may seem a bit ironic here, considering this administration also has voiced concerns about this platform. Biden himself signed into law legislation that bans the use of TikTok on government phones. If you work for a government agency and have a phone tied to that agency, you aren't allowed to use this platform. Of course, under the Biden administration, CFIUS has also threatened to ban TikTok in the U.S. if ByteDance were not to divest from the platform here. So you have those concerns on the one hand, and campaign officials have told Bloomberg that they are taking protections in order to make sure this account is secure. But on the other hand, the young voters are there and they say they want to meet them where they are.
Yeah, I mean, we've had already Republican Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri going to the other social media platform X to say, look, why on earth are they interacting on TikTok at the moment and really feeling that this is, again, a Chinese spy app. To that perspective, is there any anticipation that Biden and Harris individually would ever start taking to TikTok, or does this have to remain a campaign sort of at social presence?
Well, campaign officials have told Bloomberg that no decision yet has been made whether Vice President Harris or President Biden will have their own accounts. For now, this does seem to just be going through the campaign because, of course, you also have, on the other hand, on the Republican ticket, candidates like Nikki Haley still very much in this race, even though it looks unlikely she'll be campaigning against Biden in a general election, who has actually called for the outright banning of TikTok because of concerns over China. So certainly there is pressure there on the Republican side, and there could be a little bit of a political headwind if Biden were to push even further into the TikTok realm. And you mentioned Senator Josh Hawley. I would just note that, of course, there have been a lot of legislative efforts to ban this platform entirely. Largely, though, they do seem to have stalled out, as we've seen borne out in recent weeks. It's very hard for this Congress to get anything over the finish line, and a TikTok ban probably would be pretty difficult as well.
There with the context and the reality. Katie Lyons, we thank you so much for joining across the board on TikTok. But let's keep this conversation going on basically social media and its role of generative AI in the US election. In fact, the image-generating AI platform Midjourney is considering banning people from using its software to make political images over the next year, in particular pictures of Biden and Trump. Let's discuss all of this with Dr. Najwa Araj. She is the chief researcher in cryptography and autonomous robotics research centers at the Technology Innovation Institute. And from you, Doctor, we want answers ultimately of what can be done, practically speaking, as we think about Biden's voice being created by a deepfake. You're saying that LLM, large language model providers, can put guardrails in place to basically minimize the generation of election-related content. Is Midjourney the way to do this? How are you seeing it being put into effect?
Good morning. Yes, indeed. I mean, what you showed and the adoption of AI, its potential impact on the security of the infrastructure and online activities are pertinent, especially when we talk about in the context of election cycles. As you mentioned, the most common threat using generative AIs and GANs are deepfakes. This could be through the voice, through the video, through the image, and the text. And obviously, they aim at spreading the false information, misleading information, identity theft, and gaining access to sensitive information, let alone all the malicious chatbots that can be used as primary tools for social engineering, the malware, the ransomware that can be created using this generative AI. On the deepfakes in particular, today we see a lot of tools that are being developed. However, they are in their infancy. One of the approaches is watermarking. In fact, Meta announced a few days ago that Facebook and Instagram will start doing so. However, in my opinion, this could be quite easily evaded, even for images, for text, where gradients or even voice, gradients can be easily manipulated. The deployment of model guardrails of policies, especially when it comes to content related to elections. Today, you can basically classify the content. And when it comes to election-related content, these guardrails can be applied by the LLM model hosting companies and the content providers, and strict policies can be applied. Another way to think about other countermeasures is that we can generate signatures and profiles of whatever voice or whatever text or whatever image comes up as the deepfake. Those can be logged into a distributed system, and then we can enable auditing and tracking from the LLM hosters or from the content providers.
Dr. Araj, though, here's the thing, that you've outlined where the technology is available. Who has a better command of the technology? The threat actors who intend to spread malicious content or misinformation, or the platforms who are trying to ward off against it?
So today, obviously, the one that has the upper hand is the threat actor, right? So they use the large language models, and then they can use them in the context of GANs to generate those deepfakes. However, as I was saying, there are some countermeasures that the LLM owners and the hosting companies these measures or these countermeasures can be put in place in order to minimize the impact and to minimize the capabilities of those threat actors. In addition to the guardrails and the strict policies that I was mentioning, there are other cybersecurity protocols that need to be followed by those LLMs. And today, as we see, those are, I would say, very weakly or very loosely adopted. For example, the adoption of multi-factor authentication to log or to access this model can be applied, which this multi-factor authentication could be a password, could be a passphrase, could necessitate the provision of an email. It could even be a biometric. And this would slow, or this would prevent some of the threat actors from passing this MFA. Deploying adequate cryptographic and privacy measures can also be done by those large language models. Deployment of other cyber defense, especially safety tech systems to prevent online harm, can also be deployed by these LLMs. So there are other, let's say, traditional cybersecurity protocols that need to be adopted by the large language model providers.
All right, Najwa Araj from the Technology Innovation Institute, we appreciate your expertise. Thank you. Sticking with AI, an analysis by Morgan Stanley strategist says US companies are discussing cost control on earnings calls at a record rate amid a push to reallocate funds and invest in new technologies. And for me, Kara, I think back to that conversation I had with Ruth Porat. That's exactly what they're doing, cutting where there's no growth and reassigning to the AI initiative.
But this goes outside of the world of just technology firms. You think of UPS coming out with their earnings, talking on one side of the mouth about the need for efficiency, the job cuts they have to enact, and then the other side, how they're really focused on generative AI, wanting to deploy more assets, more money towards that. And the team over at Morgan Stanley, Mike Wilson leading it, really just saying there is this overlap. Yes, you're hearing operational efficiency again and again and again, but actually the same people uttering it are tending to talk up a lot about the AI opportunity and the investment in technology. And they say they're really starting to see basically this ongoing narrative of both job losses, basically, and AI spending on the other.
And for investors, then they look at EPS and say, did it work? That's been the story of this earnings season.
Absolutely fascinating. That's sort of the charts. You've got to go into the Bloomberg terminal and have a little look at the story and just show how they've been trying to look at the transcript mentions of operational efficiency and then who's talking up AI. Coming up, look, we're going to keep deep diving into some unlooked parts of the tech universe that we should look at more. And we're going to focus on diversity next, particularly in venture capital. Joey Mack from Chicago Blend is going to be joining us. This is Bloomberg Technology. Have a discussion about diversity or lack thereof right now, because Amazon has allegedly retaliated against 3 female employees after the women sued the company for pay discrimination. Now, the plaintiffs have, of course, been saying this within some new court papers. The lawsuit, which was filed back in November, alleges that the company pays women less than men for similar work and that females employees, well, they face systemic discrimination when seeking promotions. But we want to bring this conversation more broadly to, say, the VC space, where women-founded companies also get less funding than the average nationwide. But look, there's some glimmers of hope here. Chicago, for example, the best city for women founders, according to a new report by a Chicago nonprofit, Chicago Blend. It's a nonprofit working to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Chicago's VC community. Pleased to say CEO Joey Mack joins us for more. And actually, East Coast fared the best here. It was Chicago, Boston, New York, and then swiftly behind them comes in the West Coast, San Francisco, LA, Seattle. Are you seeing improvement here vis-a-vis the founding of companies that we saw in the prior 5 years to this set of data?
We are. In fact, over the last 5 years, we found that women have actually made some really great gains in terms of being represented among venture-backed companies that are raising venture dollars. As mentioned earlier, in Chicago, more than 36% of our venture-backed companies in the last 5 years had at least one woman founder, which is the highest rate of representation of any city included in this report. However, when we look at the amount of money that those women founders, those companies are raising, it's closer to about 15% of all the VC dollars that were deployed to Chicago companies. So, there's still quite a bit of work to do to address that funding gap.
What are the factors behind the data, Joey? What is it that makes Chicago an attractive place to be a venture capitalist or found a startup?
One thing that's working really well in Chicago is the fact that there are a number of organizations and programs that are focused on deploying capital, especially early stage capital, to women founders. And oftentimes when raising venture capital, being able to demonstrate traction is really essential. So ensuring that those founders are able to get that early stage capital, that non-dilutive capital very early in their startup journey is really essential. And I think that there's been a lot of work here in Chicago and elsewhere around the country to focus on that.
And
where we're seeing, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's also been a lot of work on diversity of all its guises. So, for example, black founded businesses as well, and you're shining a light on that's doing better, and you've got the second highest proportion in terms of percentage of VC-backed companies with a black or African-American founder, about 10%, way off the numbers we're seeing for women, Joey. I'm interested in the politics, the context of this. We had Ariane Simone on the show recently of the Fearless Fund, and we're starting to see a DEI pendulum swing. We're seeing people pushing back, saying, no, you shouldn't allocate funds from a VC or grant perspective to just a minority, be it women, be it people of color. Are you seeing that in action, or are you actually still seeing progress?
We are seeing progress. Look, there's a lot of misinformation that's been put out there around the virtue of diversity, equity, and inclusion in business and venture capital more broadly. But when you look at the funding numbers, even from our own report, we're finding that women, people of color, people who are founding companies, they're still raising significantly less than their counterparts. So what's really important here is ensuring that we are continuing to demonstrate why it's good to invest in diversity, the fact that when you have more diverse teams, they're more likely to have insights into other market opportunities that can ultimately produce better products and services for customers and ultimately produce higher returns for investors. We need to continue focusing on that, continue making that case, and demonstrating that there's also money to be made in addition to being good for society.
Chicago ranks number 1 or number 2 on your measures, but which cities or regions are showing the kind of most rapid improvements that may have been low down the list but are making progress to climb the table?
Something that we've found really interesting is in Boston, for example, they actually do really well when it comes to the percentage of dollars that are going to women-founded companies. So we can look to other parts of the country to see where there are higher proportions, higher concentrations of underrepresented founders who are raising venture capital, as well as the amount of money that they're raising. But the truth is, whether you're looking at Chicago or any other part of the country, there is still a significant funding gap for women, founders of color, and that is something that we need to focus on industry-wide.
Chicago Blend CEO Joey Mack, great to have you on the program. Thank you for your time. Now, coming up on Bloomberg Technology, we're going to talk about Verizon's multi-year process to prepare for the Super Bowl and how it went on their end on the day. That conversation is coming up next with Lynn Cox. This is Bloomberg Technology.
go back to the Super Bowl. Because as we were discussing earlier, one ad that went viral was Beyoncé using a Verizon commercial to announce that she would soon be releasing new music. Now, in the ad, she jokes with comedian Tony Hale about doing something that would, quote, break the internet, meaning Verizon's 5G network. And of course, she can't break it, even with an AI version of herself. But she did hint that new music was going to be coming just before the commercial ends, Ed, and, well, the internet went wild.
If Beyoncé can't break it, can anyone break it? Let's stick with Verizon and the Super Bowl and bring in Verizon Senior Vice President and Chief Network Officer Lynn Cox. And the serious side to this is that it went off without a hitch. On the field, the teams communicated with one another. The fans in the stadium posted to social media with vigor. What were you actually doing to support that during the game?
Well, Ed, Caroline, thank you for having me. We are thrilled with the performance of our network yesterday and, frankly, all weekend long. I was there rooting the team on behind the scenes, just supporting any way I could. You know, we take this very seriously. We have a deep partnership with the NFL, and our customers expect a lot out of our network, the most reliable and consistent network. So we have spent years planning this deployment, and we had, for the first time ever, our entire tranche of C-band spectrum deployed. That's triple the capacity that they would have experienced last year at the Super Bowl in Phoenix. And as always, it's millimeter wave's time to shine with 1,600 megahertz of capacity on millimeter wave. So customers could pretty much do anything they wanted to do on our network, whether it was in the bowl, in the tailgating areas, in the concourses. The network performed just phenomenally.
Yeah, Lynn, were there anyway, take us behind the scenes, take us to you coaching your team. Was there any moment where your heart went in your mouth, where you were ever so slightly worried, or was it really like cool heads prevailed throughout?
Cool heads prevail. I was not worried. You have to understand the pride this team takes in designing the network, deploying the network, and operating it. We had a team of 65 engineers in our network command center monitoring every single sliver of that stadium. What is performance like for this group of 30 customers sitting in this section, or 50 customers? I mean, we have more than 20 of our task force engineers walking in and around the stadium throughout the day, testing to make sure the network we designed was performing exactly as we expected. So, frankly, my job is to get out of the way and let them do what they do. They are experts at that at what they do. They're the unsung heroes, frankly, of the network. The technology is tremendous, but it's that team of engineers that really bring it to life.
Let's look at this from the network's perspective. You know, Beyoncé tried to break the internet or the 5G network, as Cara pointed out. But what kind of workload and duress does the network go under relative to any normal day? What is it you had to brace for? Yeah, you know, customers are telling us they more and more need to be connected all the time. And especially at an event like the Super Bowl yesterday, that need for hyperconnectivity to share their experience. We pushed more than 52 terabytes of data in and around the stadium on game day yesterday. That's up 9.5% year over year. As we deploy the capacity with our mid-band spectrum and our high-band spectrum, consumers are using more and more of it. So, frankly, they're telling us exactly what they want to do. Gone are the days where a simple text message is good enough. People want to FaceTime during Usher's halftime show and be able to share that with friends and family. They want to live stream. They want to, however they want to connect with friends, family, and social, we are there to support them to do that.
We thank you for taking us behind the scenes on what was a Herculean effort, I'm sure. Verizon Senior Vice President and Chief Network Officer Lynn Cox, great to catch up with you the day after the big game. And boy, was it a big game. I mean, I wish I could just dwell more on Usher and back in history and, well, people taking to roller skates, but that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology.
A little bit more somber out here on the West Coast, particularly in San Francisco and the Bay Area. But recap, great conversations about Super Bowl 58 on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and we're posting as well to all of the Bloomberg platforms. From San Francisco and New York City, this is Bloomberg Technology.